Howdy, buddy. So, I was thinking a bit about what this resembles, and try and figure out how I can think about it more clearly as a consequence of knowing what it resembles. And I'm not sure, I don't think it's a newspaper column, because it's not really focused on current events or something that would be more newspaper focused. It's not a TED Talk, or not a series of TED Talks, because it's not nearly polished enough. And I was thinking maybe like a series of short stories or serialized book chapters. Maybe? And the thought that I had too with that was, I wonder if spoken words counted for NaNoWriMo, would that mean that I could I could finish that? But I don't think it does. So I'll keep thinking on that. And if anybody has any ideas about what that seems most like, I'm open to hearing what you think. And also just a name for this. Right now, this is just me playing Dark Souls and talking over it and posting videos on the internet. I don't really know what to call it. Like, the thought that I had was, "Hey, Af, what you playing?" As a reference to the Birch siblings, but I'm not sure if I want to do that necessarily. But I also don't really have anything better than that to really work off of. Let me just... Okay, we only have 2 Twinkling Titanite, but that gives me 2 reinforcements, which is pretty good. Okay. So we're going to be going to try and kill the Moonlight Butterfly with Beatrice being summoned, because I want to have her help me with the Four Kings fight when that eventually comes around. So, to deliver on the title, I want to talk today a bit more about possibility space exploration. And I kind of talked about that in the last video a little bit, but I wanted to explore it a little bit more. Hang on. I do have to focus for these guys a little bit. And he dodged. Oh my. That's a little overkill. Okay. So, exploring possibility space, how do we figure out what to do when we're faced with kind of an unknown situation? How do we figure out where to go, what to prioritize as far as the directions that we're going? And I think the first step is you have to realize that while there are a lot of different paths, there's also ways of grouping those paths. That it's not just, like, for instance, right here, I could go down this way, I could go this way, I could walk just a little bit, and I could peek up over the ledge, and then I could go back down, because there doesn't seem to be anything up here, right? But you can kind of group those paths together. You can group them so that they are kind of coalesced or collapsed into particular nodes. So, for instance, if I'm talking or thinking about going from Firelink Shrine up to the Gargoyles, then I'm going to have a bunch of different paths that I can take to get to that, right? I can go over or under the bridge. I can... Let's see here. I can technically go around and never even fight the Taurus Demon before I... Sorry, I want to check if he had any moss on him. Technically, you don't have to fight the Taurus Demon before you fight the Gargoyles if you have a Master Key or something similar and you're able to navigate around. But at some point, you're going to have to fight the Gargoyles. At some point, you're going to have to go through that node or that checkpoint. And that's kind of the way that you have to think about it. So, like, here's another node, right? This door requires a crest that the guy who I upgraded my sword with sells for 20,000 souls. And I can kill him for it, but then I lose the ability to use him for weapon upgrades. which I don't really want to do. That's worth 20,000 souls to me. Not to mention he's super hard and annoying to kill, so it's not really a good idea to try and do that. But so this is a gate, right? A literal and a metaphorical gate, where I have a 20,000 soul barrier to entry if I want to go through this door. Technically, you can get around it, right? There's a path to go around it, but eventually you do need that crest if you want to fight another boss that's further down in the Darkroot Garden. So you have all of these different ways of going about things. You have these ways of kind of grouping them together, but that's really only if you have some game knowledge to begin with. You don't necessarily have that benefit if you're just starting out with something for the first time. And so what you have to kind of do is you have to sort of explore out. You have to... Let me just kill them really quick. Is it one hit? It is one hit. Very nice. Ah, this is such a nice sword. You don't get the benefit of knowing where everything is if you're just exploring it for the first time. And I can just do that, and you're dead. So how do you go about exploring it? Dark Souls actually does this in a really interesting way, where they kind of know which bosses are going to be harder or easier for people, especially when they're first starting out with learning to play the game properly. And so what they do, and I didn't really demonstrate it with this, but if you are a newbie and you, instead of going up, you try and go down first. You try and go down into the catacombs. What you'll find is that the skeletons in that direction are significantly harder to kill, and they only give 50 souls per kill. Whereas if you go up towards the Taurus Demon and the Gargoyles, the enemies are a lot easier to kill, and they drop 100 souls for each one that you kill. And so it kind of makes it draws you in that direction. It makes it apparent to you, oh, if I just go this way, it's a better deal for me. I can not struggle as hard, and I can get more souls for it. And the intent is that eventually... Oh. Yes, I do want to summon her. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you can handle those skeletons, and there is something that's a reward worthwhile enough for you to get past them. But it's not the right path when you first come into the game, when you're first trying to learn. But you have to be willing to explore, right? You can't just face roll, like we were talking about last time. You can't just face roll into that boss over and over and over, or not even the boss, but just the enemies themselves, right? You can't face roll into it over and over and over again, because if you do, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to make any progress. And so what you have to do is you have to take a step back, and you have to realize, okay, I'm trying to focus on this a little bit, just because the butterfly has some kind of gnarly attacks. Like that one. I have to kind of be careful of it. Okay, I killed it, Beatrice. I get the kill credit. I got the last hit. Thank you. That was... I don't think I've ever actually summoned her before, and that was way easier than I have ever had a time with the Moonlight Butterfly, except maybe playing as an archer. So I get 10,000 souls from that kill, right? So now I'm a step closer towards unlocking the gate with the Crest of Artorias. And then at the very top of this, I get the Divine Ember, which allows me to create divine weapons. after I give it to Andre. There we go. And it gives me the Watchtower Basement Key. And a Homeward Bone. Do I want to use that? Not just yet. Walk around and kill things for a little bit longer. There's other... specifically, there's a Poise Ring that I want to grab. So we're going to go do that. So you don't want to get stuck in your explorations on one particular spot. You don't want to say, I want to go downstairs into the catacombs and just keep dying to skeletons over and over again. Especially because as you get further in, the ones that you're trying to kill don't actually give you any souls, and they respawn and come up behind you when you're not expecting them to, because everything that you faced up until that point stays dead after you kill it, and they don't. And then you die over and over again. So rather than trying to continue down that path, you should try other paths. You should see, okay, what other ways can I go? Do I try and go into the New Londo ruins? Oh shoot, there's ghosts down there. There's very, very scary ghosts who hurt a lot, and I have to be cursed in order to be able to fight them. And so you realize, okay, maybe that's not a good path. And then you say, okay, well, where else can I go? And then you realize, okay, I can go up, and those enemies aren't as hard to fight. I have a better chance, and I swung with one hand. So that's what happens if you do not have the strength requirement for one-handed swings. You just kind of do a slow, lazy swing that doesn't really do any damage. Can I... Okay, that was not smart on my part. Can I drink a little bit? There we go. So this is the one other thing with the Black Knight Greatsword. It's not great in confined spaces, because if I hit the walls and it stuns itself, it's not really going to work out that well for me. Okay, so we've talked about exploring and not letting yourself get stuck on one particular spot. Trim the tree. So you've explored a bit and you've kind of identified the nodes. And maybe not the nodes proper, but at least kind of a general path, right? You know that going down to the catacombs is one way that you can go. You know that going into the New Londo ruins is another way you can go. And, oh gosh, and he dodged. Okay, well, I have one more. So you don't necessarily know that there's a boss at the end of a particular path, although you can kind of surmise it, right? You can kind of tell, oh, this is going to end up somewhere where I'm going to... Okay, that's annoying. Can I... What does this one do? Oh, that's nice. I'm probably going to make that my new primary attack. So, one thing to... Or, kind of a side note, and I'll probably cover it in a later video. Movesets are really important to understand. So, normal one-handed attack does this. Power attack does this whole thing, which is super strong and does a ton of damage, but is a huge windup that leaves me way open and doesn't really close much of a gap. So it's basically the enemy has to come and walk in front of me, and then I can use that and it'll hit them. So not the best to use. Another thing that you can do is you can roll and then swing, which is a stab for this weapon. Interesting. And then the last thing that at least that I'm aware of, is you can back hop and then swing, which is a really good attack for this. So I'm probably going to use that a good bit. And that gives me a bunch more souls. Okay. Yeah. Movesets will probably be something I talk about more later, but not for this one. So back to, you've identified the nodes. You can start outlining dependency trees as well. And it's not easy to do that for something that you're unfamiliar with. Like, you're not necessarily going to know the first time you play that when you kill the skeletons in the catacombs, if you do it with a divine weapon, then they don't respawn again. Or if you go far enough in and you kill the necromancer who is conjuring them, then they won't respawn anymore. Or they won't revive anymore, I should say. So you have to play enough to where those things start to become apparent, or you have to speak with other people who have experience, and they can give you some tips and pointers, so that way you're not frustrating yourself more than you need to. Sorry, let me get my place here. Play branding. So another note is that the demonic foliage, the tree-looking guys that I've been killing, by design, they're a little bit harder to kill. I kind of lucked out by getting this Black Knight Greatsword. It's more of a mid-game than an early-game weapon, and so a lot of stuff that I would normally have to actually fight against is just going to get killed in one hit as I'm going through it. I did not find the thing that I wanted to. I might leave that for later, because this doesn't really lend itself to the Hornet Ring very much anyway. Okay. Which, by the way, it's up there. You have to go around, and then you get up to it. It's a really good ring. Or, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm thinking the Wolf Ring. That's the Wolf Ring. The Hornet Ring's behind Sif. I might go get it. But probably not for this one. So these guys, like, you can hit them pretty hard and they'll die. But they're also kind of weak to fire, which I have a pyromancy glove, so I could use that. This is just a more effective weapon. Actually, you know what? Let's go kill, or try to kill the Black Knight. Oh, I have a follower. Okay. No longer following. So you can use fire, but the other, like, there's a lot of them, so it's kind of hard to use Pyro Glove spells, because you're going to run out of them if you just keep throwing fireballs at every demonic foliage that you run into. And so what it's better to try and do... am I going to be able to catch this guy? Oh, I swung one-handed. Well... let's do... No, I'll get him up later. I'll have another opportunity. So you want to get a fire reinforced weapon, because then you don't have to use your precious spells with your Pyro Glove, of which you only have 8 to start. And instead, what you can do is... oh gosh, okay. You can use normal attacks that have fire damage associated with them, and by doing so, you're a lot more effective against those demonic foliage. But you have to know, or you have to, not just that you know that they're vulnerable to it, you have to know where to find that. And the guy who gives fire reinforcement is down in the catacombs. So until you go down and you find him, you're not necessarily going to know that that's how that dependency resolves. And I'm going to focus up here because this guy's kind of a pain. And I could cheese this fight, but I don't want to. You can kick him off the ledge without too much problem. I totally should not have... okay. I was able to salvage that. Can I get behind you and backstab you with this? Nah, I kicked. Oh my gosh. Oh. Oh my. Well. I don't think I've ever one-shot him before. This is quite the weapon. Anyway. So you start to, as you're doing this exploration, you start to identify these dependencies. I need a divine weapon in order to kill the skeletons. I need a fire weapon in order to kill the demonic foliage. And you don't necessarily need it, right? But it makes it easier. So then once you've kind of mapped that out for yourself, how do you prioritize it? How do you prioritize not just the exploration of that possibility space, but the conquering of it, the execution of the different things that you know are things that need to be done, but you don't necessarily know the order, or you don't necessarily know, sort of, in a more general sense, what's your end goal, right? What evaluation criteria, what optimization function are you using in order to figure out what is it that you want to be doing? And there's a whole bunch of different ones, especially from video games, that we can kind of use as a template. I kind of want to try and kill this guy, actually. Does this stagger? Nope. Probably would have if I hit twice. Can I back up enough so that you... Okay. And drink. Roll out of the way that time. Okay, 2. Do we have a 3? No. Okay. So one of the things I'm doing is counting, right? I'm counting how many swings he's doing. So 3 swings. 1. He jumps out of the way. 1, 2. Oh, there's 3. Now I have a window, because he's out of stamina. Can I swing it again? Oh man, okay. Gosh, it's a sliver. I thought I could kill him on that last hit. That's why I swung. Or, actually, I thought I had stamina enough to... Okay, that's 3. Ah, there we go! So how do you prioritize, right? You want to demonstrate skill in some way, is the way a lot of people play. And speedrunning can be a really good display of that mastery. But it's often in very technical ways, and often, well, maybe not often, but sometimes uninteresting for people to watch. Like, especially things like wrong warps, where you're intentionally causing the game to glitch out and take you somewhere that it's not supposed to. Learning can be a good goal, but at some point you have to demonstrate the mastery that you're working towards. You can't just always say, oh, I'm just learning, I'm just trying to get better. It's like, okay, but put up or shut up, right? Show me, what can you do? What have you learned? Testing can be something that's a bit more deliberate, right, when you're playing something. But it's usually subordinate to some other playthrough. If you're testing something, it's because you want to know for a speedrun, or you want to know for a particular way that you want to try and play the game. And then another way that you can prioritize is storytelling. You can say, okay, I want to pretend to be a pyromancer who got, I'm sorry, like somebody from this world who got isekai'd into the Dark Souls world as a pyromancer, and try and do that, or try and play Fallout as a Marxist or as a nihilist. there's a lot of things you can do with that, but you do have to be careful because those can get a bit lame from a gameplay perspective. You still need some objective criteria for a winner or a loser. You can't. You have to have some way that reality is an arbiter. But with all that in mind, the danger is optimizing the fun out of the game. You don't want to be so dedicated to a particular way of playing, whether that's speedrunning, whether that's trying to tell really impactful stories that people really resonate with on a YouTube channel or somewhere else. You want to be able to keep engaging with it. You want to be able to keep exploring the possibility space in a way that keeps the whole experience meaningful. Because if you don't do that, that's going hollow. That's losing the love for the thing because you turned it into something that it doesn't have a soul anymore. So with that, goodbye then. Be safe, friends. Don't you dare go hollow.